We have so much DC news to cover today because yesterday a handful of YouTubers released interviews that they did with James Gunn. James Gunn reached out to a few YouTubers and basically said, hey, let's do an interview. And he gave a lot of updates about the future of the DCU, including him directing projects, him talking about Batman, the Brave and the Bold, Lanterns, Constantine 2 with Keanu Reeves. He just talked about so much. There's a lot to break down. But the first thing I want to start with is a specific clip from his interview with Boba Talks, because a lot of people saw this clip and are kind of thinking that James Gunn is unsure about his future as the head of DC Studios, especially amidst the talk right now that Warner Brothers has confirmed they are looking at bids that other companies have placed to purchase Warner Bros. Discovery. So with all that news happening recently, a lot of people are watching this clip and thinking, perhaps the future is unclear for James Gunn, but let's take a look first.
One thing I've been really curious about is you've referenced things like Peacemaker Season 2 and Lanterns setting up different threads and arcs. How far do these arcs go? Like, do they culminate in Man of Tomorrow, or can we expect them to go further than that?
Yes. They definitely go significantly further than Man of Tomorrow.
Significantly further.
So now, whether or not that'll be me that's able to fulfill that promise depends on a lot of things in life. But yeah.
So right here in this interview with Boba Talks, he says whether that is me depends on a lot of things, and he smiles and he laughs while saying that. Now, yes, it is possible Warner Bros. Warner Bros. Discovery could sell, and that might mean his future as the head of DC Studios could be a little up in the air, because that would then depend on whatever company bought them, whatever they would want to do. But also at the same time, I kind of just think he's talking about him directing in general when he says that, if that's going to be me, we'll see. I think that more than likely has to do just if he's going to be in charge of writing those stories and directing those stories, because in another interview, and most of these interviews are either coming from Boba Talks, Emergency Awesome, or New Rockstar, so credit to them for these. But a few days ago, he actually said he's going to only direct a couple of more movies after Man of Tomorrow. He said, I'm pretty tired, but we'll see. But there's a plan that I'm going to do a couple more, at least in terms of directing DCU movies, and that is coming from Deadline. So again, that conversation with Boba Talks, I think he's probably just referring to him specifically writing and directing stories. I don't think he thinks he's going anywhere as the head of DC Studios. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is a Constantine 2 update, because I love the first Constantine movie. I watched that all the time when I was younger. Like, I watched it so many times. I love that movie. In terms of Constantine 2, James Gunn confirmed he has talked to Keanu Reeves about it. He said, and this is from Boba Talks, he said, I've discussed it on and off. I've discussed it with Keanu, but I have not read a script yet. So it's a possibility, which I'm really excited about, because we've been hearing rumors about this for a while. He confirms it's definitely a possibility. They're talking about it. He's talking about it with Keanu. Keanu is very clearly interested in it. If James Gunn hasn't said, oh yeah, I talked to Keanu, but he doesn't want to do it. They're waiting on a script, it sounds like. Didn't give any info about who could possibly write it, but Constantine in the DC universe, I would like this. I would love this, actually. And I'm a big fan of Keanu Reeves as well. So I'm all for this, but let me know what you would think about it. So another thing that he talked about when it comes to Batman, the Brave and the Bold, he said that there have been a lot of changes with the Brave and the Bold that were not originally planned for the film when it was announced. Now, I know a lot of people hear this and they think, oh, does this mean something with Robert Pattinson's Batman in The Batman? A lot of people, have been speculating that the Elseworlds Batman, The Batman, might actually be the main Batman of the new DCU. I love Robert Pattinson's Batman. I really do. But I'm not really sure they're going to fuse those worlds. I know a lot of people can point out evidence or what they think is evidence out there. But we've talked about this before on our podcast, on our CVA podcast. It seems like James Gunn would want to go through the whole process of getting his new Batman, of looking for the perfect actor to play Batman, and just kind of going through all the hype that surrounds it as well. Not that there wouldn't be hype around Robert Pattinson, I think there would, but we do have the Batman 2 coming out, and it doesn't seem like they're really going to fuse, but he did confirm they have not cast Batman yet. for the Brave and the Bold. And it sounds like some things have changed. That could be with Robin. That could be just with the story overall. That could be with the villain. Who knows? But luckily for us, it's still happening. Obviously, he has to introduce Batman to the new DCU. So hopefully we get another update on that soon. But as of now, things have changed from the original story and they have not cast Batman. Now, speaking of the overall big bad of the new DC universe, James Gunn confirms who the big bad is not going to be. It is not going to be Darkseid for a very interesting reason, he said. He said Darkseid is not going to be the big bad of the DCU because of how well Zack Snyder portrayed him, and recently, including the fact that he draws similarities with Thanos. So due to the fact that he thinks Zack Snyder portrayed Darkseid very well, he's not going to do Darkseid. And at the same time, he thinks that Darkseid and Thanos are pretty similar to each other, and Marvel just did Thanos. Well, not just did Thanos, but I mean, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Not that long ago, I guess. But it is very interesting to hear this because I would imagine James Gunn would give his own take on Darkseid. Like, obviously, David Corenswet's Superman and Henry Cavill's Superman, they're very different from each other, right? They're very different. It's almost kind of like they're two different characters, right? They're both Superman, but very different sides of Superman are shown with these two iterations of them. You would think that he would have his own vision for Darkseid, but I get it. So clearly he has his idea of who the main villain's going to be, whether that's Brainiac or whomever, but it's not going to be Darkseid. That is confirmed now. Now, another update was on the Mr. Terrific show and the show about Jimmy Olsen, the spin-off shows. He didn't have much to say, but he did confirm they are happening. They are in development. They are in what he said, the early days right now. So we are getting that Jimmy Olsen show and we are getting that Mr. Terrific show. I think both could be really cool. Definitely Mr. Terrific, because some of his scenes in Superman were the best scenes. And Jimmy Olsen, he was a funny character. I'm curious to see how they would take that show. Could be interesting. Now, this news might come as a disappointment for some, but he did confirm that basically the Batman Arkham TV series is dead. Originally, it sounded like it was going to be produced by Matt Reeves, but James Gunn said it just didn't work. No one is currently developing it for the DCU. So we didn't really know much about this show. It was kind of a mystery, but I think kind of just having a whole show about Arkham would have been really cool. Probably more that horror-esque side like Clayface is going to be. Again, we didn't know much about it, but I was very curious about it. Unfortunately, it's been canceled. Didn't have the priority from James Gunn, and he confirms no longer in development. Now, last but certainly not least, an update on the Lanterns TV series. No, that is not canceled. They're almost done with that. He says in response to the question how Lanterns is important in setting up the DCU, he states, well, I think it's everything. I think they are important characters, and so that by itself is important. Without anything else, it's just like how Peacemaker is an important character. And so there's that, but there's also other things that kind of go far into the future in terms of what happens in that show. So right away, I just got to say, I actually really do like how James Gunn sets up other things in his movies. Like I like how he set up Guy Gardner's Green Lantern and Superman and the Justice Gang and a lot of different things in that movie. And then at the same time in Peacemaker, he sets up the return for Lex Luthor and the premise for Man of Tomorrow. I did think that finale was a little lackluster, but overall I really did enjoy Peacemaker season 2, and season 1 was just, it was beautiful. But I do like how James Gunn is connecting everything and making it all really feel like a big connected universe. I just love that so far. And then we had an update from Aaron Pierre himself, one of the Green Lanterns, who says it's been a long time coming for fans and supporters. And I truly hope with all my heart that we make everybody proud and we make everybody thrilled that we did this. A long time coming for many fans. I like that. It makes it sound like they are indeed going to do justice for both of these characters, both of these Green Lanterns that are going to be coming. And I'm really excited to see him play Jon Stewart. So, like I said, lots of updates for DC. Let me know what you're most excited about or perhaps maybe most disappointed about in the comments down below. But be sure to subscribe if you want to stay up to date with DC news. You can also find us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Snapchat. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.